Can't legislate love, but we can name hate. Can't fix what you won't face at the gate. So we name it wars, tariffs, ice, wage gap, prison pipe, call each idol down and flip the light. This ain't about fame, it's about food. Not platforms, but power in the hands they exclude.
We won't stop till the whole county rise. We won't stop till the whole county rise. We won't stop till the whole...
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone is having an amazing day. This is James Gailliard. Welcome to Until All Thrive. I'm thrilled that you are joining me. I think I had a little glitch with my music, and so apologize for that while we try to figure that thing out on the next show next week. But every week is going to get better and better. And I'm just excited that you're joining me. And so I want to get right into it. I've got a whole lot to cover. I'll be checking on what you have to say as we go throughout the show, but I want to jump right in. And I told you yesterday, so happy Monday, August 4th, everybody. I hope you're having an amazing day. And again, I'm James Gailliard. This is Until All Thrive. This is a weekly conversation that is at the intersection of public policy, prophetic insight, and the pursuit of justice. I'm your host. I'm a public servant. I'm a senior pastor, and now a podcast show host. I guess I have been for a little while, actually. And I'm inviting you to join me and engage with me on issues that I think we're going to help shape our culture, things that I think will help impact our communities, things that I believe will define our future as residents of North Carolina and abroad. And I'm also a North Carolina Senate District 11 candidate, representing hopefully Nash, Vance, and Franklin counties. And so today, together, we're going to lift our voices. Today, we're going to expose some truth. We're going to activate some change. And so I want to jump on in and invite you into the conversation. One of the things that I shared with you is that as we began doing this work, we would have various segments. And so the first segment today is what is trending. And, you know, trending is a relative thing, right? It really depends on who's watching what and who is listening to what. And to the point of my sermon yesterday at Word Tabernacle Church, to the point of who we're allowing to influence our thinking and who we're giving ourselves constant permission to program us. But I thought, since I'm a pastor, I will go ahead and jump into something that is controversial in the church right now, particularly the Black church, but the church, I think, in general. And that was the recent interview with the executive from Maverick City Music. Thought it was really interesting. And so I wrote down some of his comments, and I want to know what you think about it. I'm going to certainly give you my perspective. And so he says the gospel norms wasn't working anymore. They're not working anymore. Y'all sing too hard. Y'all oversing, was one of his comments. He went on to say, stop doing that. Nobody wants to hear runs. Choir music would have never died if people wanted to listen to it. And then he goes on to say, we have Black kids with respectfully white writers and producers training them not to oversing, and the songs hit different during the pandemic. Now, I will say, well, let me give you all of his comments, and then after his comments, then I'll give you some of my perspective. And so then he went on to say something that I thought was really interesting. I believe he's Nigerian born. I think he's first generation. Norman is American. I think he's first generation. He said, I grew up with two doctors for parents. I don't know anything about food stamp struggle. Our battles are internal now, not external. You know, one of the things about when people say things that are controversial is that they're not always all wrong. As a matter of fact, you know, in many situations, there is some truth in some things. I can tell you, for me, my fundamental problem with this is, and he actually went on to, I think, even attack a Marvin Sapp song, which, you know, never could have made it. Listen, I don't care if you have a GED or a PhD. I don't care if both your parents are doctors or not. The truth of the matter is none of us would have made it without the Lord. I mean, that's just the bottom line. None of us would have made it without him. So I think maybe, who knows, he might be getting ready to learn that the hard way. I was really disappointed by the interview personally. I think that in any industry, when God blesses you to become elevated to the point that you're amongst the top of the people in your industry, I think we should recognize that we are on the shoulders of people that have gone before us. And I think that I really appreciate Marvin Sapp's kind of position on it. I was reading some of what he had to say, and he was right. He said, I didn't get here by rejecting tradition. I got here by respecting it, by learning from it, by evolving beyond it without erasing it. I mean, can you imagine, let me see, we've come this far by faith. Think about some of the music that is been attached to the movement. I was sharing with someone recently, can't remember who it was, that I think it was because I had written the song and through AI had arranged the song, the Until All Thrive song for this podcast. And I'm sorry that it doesn't sound like it looped. I just jumped on Facebook real quick at the beginning. And so we'll find out what that glitch is, and I'll play it at the end for you. But as I was thinking about it, I was like, you know what? Movements have music. Like when people are trying to do great things, particularly around socio-political change, there's music attached to that. And I think one of the things that we need in this hour, and I just will shout this out since I'm on my first segment. And for those of you that are just tuning in, I'm James Gailliard. This is the Until All Thrive podcast, formerly in black and white, formerly the James Gailliard Show. And so I am airing live on Mondays from 5 to 6:15-ish or so, 75 to 90 minutes probably. Continuous talk, at least if my voice will allow me. Continuous talk for those hour and 15 minutes. And we're airing every Monday on all of our platforms. I would love for you to subscribe to my YouTube channel because that's really where I want to push the audience. That's my ultimate goal. I will be responding to your messages after show, and I will try to wrap the show up with kind of taking a quick look, if I can, of what people are saying in different platforms. But we should be running on 4 platforms. The first is YouTube, James Gailliard. The second is my Facebook page, which some of you are probably on. The third is my campaign, Citizens to Elect James D. Gailliard Facebook page. Hope you will follow that. And then the fourth is my website, which is jamesgailliard.com. And you can see the spelling of my name correctly, since most people just refer to me as Pastor G. You can see the spelling of my name correctly. And so the first segment we're on is what's trending, right? And so what's trending is the interview from Maverick City's executive about gospel music being dead. And can you imagine? So I was segueing about, can you imagine when choral music, choir music became really, really popular? Can you imagine them displacing the music of the movement to say, well, we don't need to sing Wade in the Water no more. We don't need to sing We've Come This Far by Faith. We don't need to sing any of the music that helped get us to where we are. That is so nonsensical. Like, don't sing anything that helped you get to where you are. And so it's disappointing to me that when we make it, we don't realize that we are not the first iteration of success, that God uses people, places people ahead of us, and then we wind up advancing as a result of their efforts. We wind up advancing as a result of just learning. Like, I don't know how else to say it. It is an iterative process. And so I think Marvin Sapp was spot on when he said, we get here by respecting our tradition. We get here by learning from our tradition. We get here by evolving from our tradition. I mean, I pastor a church now that is so much larger than the church I was a member of as a child, right? But I learned hymns in that church. I learned liturgy in that church. I learned pulpit etiquette in that church. And maybe we only had 50 people in church on Sunday morning, but I learned the value of serving. And it would be ridiculous for me to now disregard that tradition that I came from. I think the other thing that's interesting to me is that it is a real slap in the face to Black culture. And I think it's a slap in the face when he makes the comment about, both my parents were doctors. And he makes a comment about everybody wasn't parented by doctors, but he just talks about runs. Now, y'all know I can't sing a lick, right? I don't have any rhythm. I've not been blessed with those gifts. The Lord probably knew I would not be able to have handled them. And so he not to worry, y'all, this is just water. Oh. So I don't have any of those gifts, but when he talks about riffs, and let me see, how did he say it? When he talks about singing hard and over singing and runs, y'all, man, some of that comes out of the pain we experience. Some of that comes out of the hardship of our lives. Some of that is a direct impact as a result of what we've been through. And so people go through so much, and they finally get to church on Sunday morning, and they get to wail out to God. Man, that is not something that we should be frowning upon. How can you tell a person that's been through hell and high water all week that you sing too hard? My goodness, if this was a Sunday morning, boy, this would be shouting time. How can we tell a person that, nobody wants to hear all those runs? And sometimes we are the byproduct of that, and we need that. Flip side of this whole interview was that, like most industries, gospel music probably needs to do some changing, right? I know the church does, and I think as we evolve as a people, we become increasingly more and more successful. And so just wanted to start off today's show with that piece about what was trending. I'm sure you saw the interview. I think it was Isaac Carreri's podcast show, and I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce his last name, Gyamfi. I think he's Nigerian, Norman Gyamfi. I was disappointed with his statement of, I don't have to win, I got to make some money. And that was disappointing for me, because I think what it suggests is that the agenda and the motivation behind the music is to capitalize on it and not to give God glory. And so some of my initial thoughts about that, be curious to hear yours and curious to read yours over the next couple of days when I'm looking at all of the things that you are kind of writing about and sharing about. And so that's the first thing I kind of want to talk about today. I want to shift gears, though, and I want to move from what is trending to what the headlines are. And in the headlines, y'all, I want to talk about the last session in North Carolina General Assembly and some of the veto overrides. As you know, our governor is now Governor Josh Stein. I'm highlighting 4 or 5 bills that I want you to be aware of. I'm going to give you a takeaway during the implementation phase of the show. But before I do that, I want to just go through some veto overrides. And so Governor Stein had vetoed several bills that came out of the General Assembly. Quick reminder for those of you that don't know. A bill is introduced by a member of the North Carolina General Assembly, either in the House or in the Senate. That bill will then get filed. That bill will then get read into the House floor, and it will be sent on a pathway. It will be sent, and the pathway are various committees. There's a healthcare committee, there's an insurance committee, there's local government committee, there's whatever, all the things, right? Appropriations and whatever the things are. So that bill is given a track. If the majority party in this situation is Republicans, if 9 times out of 10, if you file a bill and you're a Democrat, it's going to go straight to the Rules Committee, which means it's being buried there. Some of the best bills, and I'm going to do a whole show on the best legislation that never was and the worst legislation that should have never been, okay? So, but some of the best bills get buried there just because it's so partisan. Let's just say it does get moved, and then it will go through those committees, and then from the committees, it will go back into the chamber, either the House or the Senate. When it goes back into the chamber, it's going to be read in a second time. Remember, the first time was to give it a path. The second time is after it comes from the path and all those committees, it gets read in a second time, and that's where the vote is. That's really the pivotal vote, because generally, if it's smooth sailing. The third vote is just a voice vote, and it's not actual casting, so you can't really see who's a yay and who's a no. And so these bills went through that process, and then they went to the governor's desk. Once they go to the governor's desk, these bills can either be signed into law by the governor, believe he has 10 days, or they can become law without his signature. So sometimes, they're like, I'm holding my nose up to this particular bill. I'm not going to fight it. I'm going to let it become law, but I'm not crazy about it, right? Or it can be vetoed. If it's vetoed, then it goes back by a special messenger to the House or to the Senate, wherever it originated from. And at that point, it can be brought back up for a veto override. Now, the situation that we're in North Carolina is that we have a super majority in the Senate. And people don't like it when I say this, but this veto override proved it. We have a functional supermajority in the House. The reason I say it's a functional supermajority is because technically it's not a supermajority because they need to pick off one Dem to vote with the Republicans in order to override the veto. And we have, and so let me just stop and say this, okay? The purpose of my show is to advance us moving forward. And so some of this is my commentary, but so much of what I'm going to say is just fact. And so I just want to be honest, so I want to just call out the players because I think it's important that we do that. So in the House, we have 120 House representatives in North Carolina, and they just need one Democrat to vote with them. And we have 4 or 5 who have the spirit to be picked off to be able to do that. One is very local to us in Edgecombe County, Shelley Willingham. One is in Mecklenburg County, Carla Cunningham. One is in High Point area, Cecil Brockman. One is Masif Najid in Charlotte, voted with them. I was really, really surprised about. And, we've got some further south of Fayetteville, like a Garland Pierce, who has the potential to be that person. And so, we've got a handful of people. I feel like I'm missing somebody. It may come to me. I feel like I'm missing one other person who has the ability to do that. And so, sure enough, you need both chambers in order to override the veto. So this is why, the seat that I'm running for is so important, because the Senate was able to withhold the veto, right? But you only need, but they don't have this. They're in a super minority. So because they're in a super minority, all of them voted in block, but they didn't have enough votes. They needed one more vote. The one more vote would be the senator for Senate District 11, which is the one big reason why I'm running. Because had I been in that seat, we would have been able to withhold the governor's veto. We would have been able to uphold it. So I want to go through some of these bills that some of our Democratic comrades voted with the Republicans on. And let me just say this. I'm not, I really am a bipartisan guy. I think the best legislation should make some Democrats and some Republicans I don't really love this, but it's the best we can do. I think what happens so oftentimes in the hyper-partisan moments that we live in is that, we've got these bills coming across and they're either all in favor of Republicans or all in favor of the Democrats. And right now in North Carolina, it's really Republican. So I want to just lift up a few of these bills. Disappointed by some of the people that voted with the Republicans on these because I don't think that this was necessary. One of them was Senate Bill 254. This is a bill basically about charter school changes. And what it does is it transfers charter oversight from the State Board of Education to a politically appointed board. That's the first thing it does. Now, Mo Green is superintendent for public instruction here in North Carolina. The only reason why they did this is because they want to pull as much power away from people of color and Democrats. And so there's no reason for a politically appointed board to have oversight on charter schools when it has historically been under the State Board of Education. Had a Republican won that race, they would not have ever filed this bill. And this is why, and I do want to say something, even though I've called out some Democrats who I think didn't have a good reason to vote with them other than their own political agendas. And let me just say that about something about political agendas. A lot of times people who are in public office will say, well, I voted that way because I'm trying to bring something home for the district. And so I need to negotiate. But I have been on the other side of this, and I can tell y'all folk, the best way to bring results home for your district is to stick together as a caucus. The advice that I was given when I first got elected was politics is the ultimate sport, ultimate team sport. And it really is. We saw great results when we stuck together. When I was in the House, we were able to uphold Governor Cooper's vetoes, and we were able to negotiate as one unit. And so the caucus should really come together and say, what is it that are the things that we really need and want for our districts and for our state? And let's stick together. Let's vote in block so that we can get those agendas across the board for everyone. Well, what happens is, many politicians wind up selling themselves really, really cheap. And in selling themselves really, really cheap, they wind up making deals, so that they can get one small little thing back in their community. But they could have gotten so much more back from their community had they just stuck together and voted as a block. So charter school changes is a concern for me. The other thing that this bill does is that it removes the enrollment caps. And I think that, again, this is just another way of attacking traditional public schools. Let me say, I'm not in any regard anti-charter schools. I do get concerned about some of the wiggle room and lack of regulation that they have, because oftentimes that doesn't lend itself to great education for children. And so, but I think we should be concerned, particularly if you live in a lower wealth community, if you live in Nash County or Vance County or Franklin County or Wilson County, Warren County, Martin County, Edgecombe County, I think Halifax County, because they're already struggling financially in those school systems. And this is just siphoning more money away, more money that could have gone for textbooks or for buses or for teacher aid. And, and so I really think this is an unfortunate bill, Senate Bill 254. At the implementation section of the show, I'm going to walk you through some things so you can do some of these bill lookups yourself. For those of you that's joining, this is James Gailliard, and this is Until All Thrive podcast. We're airing every Monday. I'm going through all of the headlines that I think might be noteworthy to educate us, inform us. The purpose is to really educate us and to get us talking about substantive things that really matter in our community. And so the next is, Senate Bill 416 was Personal Privacy Protection Act. This blocks state agencies from disclosing nonprofit donor data, and it imposes fines on any official who does. Now, that sounds good, right? It blocks state agencies from disclosing nonprofit donor data. The problem with this is that now you have big money groups donating to steer certain kinds of bills and legislation, vouchers, abortion, redlining, voting rights. And so grassroots groups lose the transparency tools that they rely on to expose who's bankrolling policies that deepen inequity. And so the issue I have with this is that I'm just a transparency kind of guy. Like, I just fundamentally believe in transparency. So because I fundamentally believe in transparency, we should be honest about who is giving politically, who is giving what amount of money to foster what kind of direction into to change policy, right? So that was another bill that was the veto was overturned last week. here's one that's really concerning. Senate Bill 266 was the Power Bill Reduction Act. Power Bill Reduction Act, basically, Duke Energy is a mammoth organization, a mammoth corporation. It's basically Duke Energy's lobbyists wrote a wish list and pretty much got everything they wanted on their wish list. And so, a couple of things this concerns me about. One is we had a 2030 mandate around cutting carbon by 2030 by 70%. It totally lifts that mandate, right? So, and that directly impacts poorer communities. It directly impacts people that don't have air conditioners. They have to have their windows open. Can you imagine? I mean, the heat of the summer we've had, right? Imagine being in a poorer community. You don't have central air conditioning. You don't have window air conditions. Listen, family, you think that's not real. It's real. And your home is right near a busy highway, or it's right near a busy thoroughfare because the government deliberately put in highways near you. And so now all of these vehicles, tailpipes are going by you with all this carbon monoxide emission, and your windows are wide open. Can you imagine the children having breathing problems? Can you imagine the senior citizens that have to deal with this? And so it's a reason. And I'm not like some hyper, freaky tree hugging, the environment is everything kind of guy. Like that's not me at all. But you'd have to be not a thinking person if you don't recognize climate change is real. I mean, just, so what little things we can do to make things better. And when you talk about the big players like a Duke Energy, so that's the first thing it does, is that it totally repeals the 70% carbon cut mandate by 2030. The other thing that it does that is concerning is that it's going to let the utility companies charge customers in advance of their future plants. So let's just say Duke Energy is like, hey, we need another power plant. We need to build a plant. And that plant is going to cost us $800 million or whatever the number is. You know what? We have X numbers of tens of thousands of customers. We're going to start billing them a new plant surcharge on their bill. And instead of us using our profit, instead of us making sound business decisions to invest in the development of our business, we're going to stick our hands in the pocket of school teachers and firemen and police officers. We're going to charge people that need every penny possible to buy back to school supplies. We're going to stick our hand in the pockets of people on Medicaid who are barely getting through anyway. We're going to stick our hands in the pocket of seniors who have retired and have a fixed income and is trying to make sure everything is being paid for. Instead of us making an investment, we're going to stick our hands in their pocket and have the utility companies pay for the building of the plant. What kind of politician agrees to that? So that was another one. And so, I oftentimes talk about regressive taxes. And when you hear me talk about regressive taxes, I'm talking about taxes that if you are poor, it impacts you to a greater degree than if you're wealthy. So let me give you an example. Let's just say let's just use this as an example, right? If I make $12 an hour and I'm working 40 hours a week to just pay my rent, and maybe I'm getting food stamps to help me out, even though SNAP benefits are being cut. It's a whole nother show. So I'm $12 an hour, Duke Power, my apartment is being powered by Duke Energy. They decide they want to build a new power plant so they can get their shareholders paid and the CEO can make more money. I'm already struggling to pay my utility bill. Now there's a fee. There's a $2.17. I'm just throwing this out hypothetically. $2.17 fee on my utility bill every month to help now pay for your new plant. Now, who is hurt more by that? The person I just described. I'm making $12 an hour. I've got some SNAP benefits. I'm trying to keep moving to do what I need to do. So that $2.17 is another $2.17 that I really don't have that I've got to pay. Or the person who makes $400,000 a year as the neurosurgeon at the hospital. And I'm not anti-neurosurgeons at hospitals. So I'm just trying to prove a point. Who is living way beneath their income. They have plenty of disposable income, and they now have to pay another $2.17. Who gets hurt the worst? That's an example of a regressive tax. A regressive tax is a tax that gets imposed upon everyone, but disproportionately impacts people with the least amount of resources. I hope that's tracking. Hope that's making sense. And so, House Bill 318. Let me see, I'm trekking on time here. We're in the second segment of our show. This is James Gailliard. I am your host, and this is Until All Thrive, our new show, our new podcast, and we are covering all of the headlines this week. We started our show with what was trending, and then from there, we went to what our headlines are, and then from there, we'll go to real talk. I really got some stuff to share with y'all, so y'all need to be telling. Would y'all go ahead and share this? Would you tell some people to jump on in? Jump on the YouTube channel, and I'll be taking a look at some of what you're saying. I'm going to try to come up with a break at some point in the show. I've got to figure out I really want to do commercial breaks. And so once I kind of get in a rhythm, then hopefully we'll get some sponsors and some advertisers. And then those sponsors and advertisers will go ahead and, play their spots for 60 seconds or 45 seconds or whatever the case is. And that'll give me a moment to drink some water and swallow and all the things. So the next bill is the ICE Cooperation Act. And it's many. I think I just picked out 4 or 5. House Bill 318, I believe it was. And this requires county sheriffs to honor ICE detainers and to share booking data for immigration holds. And on the surface, I know people are like, well, what's really wrong with that? Why wouldn't sheriffs want to do that? So let me tell you a couple of problems that this poses for me. Okay. And let me just be really clear. Like, if you are breaking the law, I don't want you running around in the street. I don't know any human being that just wants people who are breaking the law running around in the street. Like, I just don't know that person. Have you met that person? I've not met them. But I do want all of us to have due process. I mean, whatever you do wrong, we don't just get to disappear people. And it's America, y'all. We literally have a president who's like disappearing people. You do realize that, right? And so when due process is gone, what do we have? And I'll go through this in a minute, right? I mean, it's literally constitutional. But with no due process where we can just pick up somebody, they don't get to call an attorney, they don't have to have a judge order, they don't have any of that. We can just send them where we want to send them and do what we want to do without anybody checking on us. That's scary. I mean, that's scary. And so a couple problems. I think that here's the first problem. The first problem is that many sheriffs or some sheriffs ran on this issue saying, look, we're not cooperating with ICE, these ICE detainers. Like, we need a due process. And if they won their election on that position, we don't get to supersede that in the General Assembly and then take, in essence, the will of the people away. So if you live in Durham or you live in Charlotte or, Mecklenburg County, rather, because these sheriffs are counties, I don't get to undo the will of the people. And I think this bill it does exactly that. But I think here is the issue for me, and I jotted down some things I wanted to kind of communicate with everybody where my concerns lie. I think the first thing it does is it trades a true judicial warrant for an ICE officer's signature and a state judge's quick confirmation. And so even in other cases around the country, like various circuit courts, they're basically saying this does not uphold the Fourth Amendment. The The Fourth Amendment says you have to have just cause, right? What is your probable cause for holding me? You have to have some kind of probable cause, right? So what happens is when ICE has a detainer, it is an administrative warrant. I want y'all to hear me. This is a nuance. This is why we have to be really familiar with the law and what general statutes say. It is an administrative warrant. It is a civil document that is signed by a deportation officer. It is not signed by a judge, right? And so there is a Fourth Amendment standard. I'm not an attorney. I wish I should have had. I'm going to bring somebody on the show in the next couple of weeks that can explain this better than me. Judge Tony Browns, he's retired now. I'm going to bring him on. And so there's a Fourth Amendment standard that says any new custodial seizure must be supported by a warrant issued by a neutral magistrate or by probable cause an offense was committed. So if I pick you up on one thing and we resolve our issues, I don't get to then turn you over without probable cause in something else or without a judge kind of issuing an order, right? This is literally an administrative order. And so I think it bypasses Fourth Amendment responsibilities, and it concerns me. Because I know even though they're sending them now to a quick local judge, I mean, it could really be argued that the judge, especially if they're Republican, even though our courts are supposed to be nonpartisan, the judge could just rubber stamp it. And so in essence, they're rubber stamping the agent's civil paperwork. So it's still civil paperwork. So the extra step doesn't cure the underlying Fourth Amendment deficiency. So I struggle with these kinds of things because when we get elected, you literally hold your hand on the Bible and you're like, I'm going to uphold the Constitution. And I'm amazed that for so long, Republicans were claiming to be constitutionalists. And yet, we see this federally with the president. Someone was referring to him as the resident, and I kind of like that. But we see this with the resident, right? He, is just bypassing so much of what the Constitution is, and Congress is allowing it, which is really why, we need to vote in such major numbers. This stuff could get fixed almost immediately. It really could. And I'm hoping that we're going to motivate a lot of people through the show to be able to do that. Here's the last bill, and then I'm going to go to our next segment. The next bill is the Freedom to Carry North Carolina. Freedom to Carry NC. It is Senate Bill 50. We did a whole community event at my church on this bill, and are you ready? I said, are y'all ready? It reduces concealed carry age from 21 to 18. It gets worse. And it scraps all permit and training requirements. So when I got my concealed carry, and let me just be really clear, no, this is not some we don't want nobody carrying guns. But I don't want an 18-year-old carrying a gun without training and permitting it. You don't need to be running around with a gun at 18 years old. I can't wait to see what the sheriffs are going to do. Sheriff is going to stop somebody driving down the street. They're going to have a gun on them. They're going to be 18 years old. What you going to do? No permit. Nothing. That's crazy to me. There's also a bill, I don't know if it was Senate 50 or the other House bill, that is allowing teachers to carry in private schools. So that's a whole nother situation. I have yet to meet a teacher that wants to carry. Like, I'm really curious what teacher lobbied the General Assembly and said, I really want to carry a gun in the classroom. Like, I would love to know what teacher lobbied the General Assembly for that. I would love to know. Since Shelley Willingham was in support of it, I would love to know what school, because I think we should just know that information. Like, what private school did the teacher come from that said, we want or what principal or what board from what private school lobbied the General Assembly, convinced Shelley Willingham to vote with the Republicans to say, we want to carry handguns in our school around our kids. I would love to know what school that was. if anyone out there knows what school that was, would you please let me know? Would you put it in the comments, please? Like, I would love to know what school. So just so I can make sure not a single Wordites child goes to that school. There's no, I've yet to talk to a teacher that thinks it's a good idea for teachers to carry guns. And so these are the kinds of bills that we are seeing, family. And let me give you some data, because you guys know that I'm really, really big on data, right? So let me give you some data. Other states have passed the same exact law, which is going to get me to like the real talk segment. I'm going in at the real talk segment. Other states have adopted similar measures, right? And there has been over a 10%, actually 11%, increase in gun homicides in those states. Y'all ready? Same bill passes. 11% increase in homicides in those states among a certain population of people. Black boys, 18 to 24 years old. I'm speechless. Why would a black male state representative vote on a bill that would increase the likelihood of homicide amongst African American males that are between the ages of 18 and 24? That's mind-boggling to me. Hope y'all are out there. Don't know who is out there. I have not been on my device. I can't believe I'm this far into the show, but I am all the way in. And thank you. My daughter is my campaign manager. And she just sent me a text that says it's House Bill 193 that allows guns in private schools. So thank you very much, darling. And I appreciate her fact checking me. So thank you very much. And so I guess she's watching the show. I want to go ahead and shift gears now. And I wanted to put a slide up, but I didn't have time to like get it loaded like I needed to. So I don't know if I'm going to post it on my social media or if I'm going to just wait until, I'm just going to wait until another way to do this. But I'm about to go in deep, okay? Are y'all ready? I made a statement around places that I just don't patronize any longer. And it was hard for some people to hear because two of the places are well-known Christian establishments. And I'm grateful that people have been around me long enough to know that if I say something, I have a reason for saying it. Like, I'm not just one of them go be emotional guys. And so I have spent a great deal of research digging through lots of public records to present to you what I'm about to present to you. Because when I'm sharing certain things, I'm not being emotional about it. I'm really trying to educate us on some things that, in many situations, I didn't know. And I know it's not uncommon for some particularly evangelical Christians to wave the banner of Christianity, but in all acknowledgments, they are really capitalists. They really aren't. I'll say this. Here's the defining thing for me when it comes to our faith. I don't fundamentally lean in on, is it conservative or liberal? I don't even lean in on, is it right or wrong, because I think that's relative. You know, what is clear? Like, I know it's relative because people had slaves, right? I know it's relative because people had slaves, right? So if I'm black in 1812, it's wrong to have slaves. If I'm white in 1812, it's right to have slaves, right? So right and wrong is relative. So for me, the acid test, the litmus test of Christian faith, and I do get to talk about that because I'm a Christian, is not right or wrong. It's not liberal or conservative. It's Jesus or non-Jesus. Like that to me is the fundamental test. And when I look at much of what is evangelical, quote unquote, Christianity, is very non-Jesus, right? And so I want to lift up to you. I have proof. And so that's, I told you it was really three, but I want to do like Rose like, I need a whole show to deal with Art Pope and his foolishness, right? So I need a whole show on his enterprise, and I'm gonna spend him separately. But I want to tell you my position regarding Hobby Lobby and Chick-fil-A, and why I personally don't patronize them. Because, and I know people have said, man, they're great Christian organizations, but you don't understand how they funnel their dollars, particularly their foundation dollars, their private donors, the things that they give to, and what those ultimate results have been. And so let me educate the audience, okay, about how this thing works. Organizations form a pipeline, okay? And what happens is they'll create what is referred to as an anonymous donor fund, right? So people are giving into this huge fund. I'm going to name them, or don't have to worry about that. Giving into these anonymous donor funds. These donor funds then fund, and I'm not talking y'all $100. I'm talking tens of millions of dollars, okay? They fund then think tank research. They think through, how can we legislate this? How can we better do this? Their think tank research arms start forming model bills. Like when people are in the General Assembly in power, say in North Carolina or in Texas, they're not scratching their head, like they're not going out into their districts trying to legislate, trying to pass bills or write bills that's in the best interest of the state or the best interest of their constituent. That's what, like, I don't even understand that, like, people why y'all vote against your own best interest, your own self-interest? That's just so crazy to me. Like the representatives that are in our community now that are Republican in Raleigh, all over the state, they're not representing your community. They are lapdogs to these research tanks. And so what happens is these research tanks do all this research and they draft sample legislation. And they in turn send that sample legislation all over the country. And they send them to state legislation, and they get lobbyists to start pushing those agendas. And then they create another arm that is a litigation arm because they know we're going to get sued in court over this because it's raggedy and it's wrong. So then they create a whole litigation model so that when it does show up in court, why do you think it's so important you think about everything Trump is doing, how many times he's been sued? But if you wind up putting judges in place because you've already funded the litigation arm. So they funded the litigation arm, and then what happens is, as a result, it starts to do things like widen the inequities in public schools. It starts to hurt health. It starts to hurt housing. It hurts the justice system. But on the surface, these organizations look amazing because if you need, 20 chicken sandwiches for your nonprofit fundraiser, we're happy to go donate that to you. But tens of millions of dollars are being funded to really damage that very community. So let me walk you through some of this. This is the Real Talk segment. Oh, I didn't let y'all know it was the Real Talk segment. My bad. And so this is the Real Talk segment. I have these little lower thirds, y'all. Did y'all see that? All right. So let's walk through, and I have a guide that I'm going to give you for this, but let me just kind of walk you through some big foundations. I think my phone just blinked. Let me make sure nobody's trying to get through to me on some other issue. And so let me walk you through kind of the way this works, and hopefully it'll be helpful and impactful for you. So you have like big foundations like the Bradley Foundation, right? They're out of Milwaukee. They made a bunch of their money in electronics, and they literally created a foundation that put millions of dollars into think tanks, into state policy shops that fight public sector unions, that push private school vouchers, that oppose climate regulation, all those things, right? So now let's start talking about Chick-fil-A. the Cathy family is the empire behind Chick-fil-A. When you begin looking at their giving and their philanthropy, it flows through a foundation called the WinShape Foundation, WINSHAPE Foundation. And that foundation also partners with the Koch brothers. We've heard about the Koch brothers, KOCH, and they formed a network called Stand Together Foundation. So see, when you think about Chick-fil-A, you won't see Chick-fil-A. You got to look into WinShape Foundation. You got to look into Stand Together Foundation. And then they started doing what's called poverty solution grants, right? So that sounds wonderful. We're going to alleviate poverty. But when you start looking at it, it started really advancing an agenda that really wound up becoming Project 2025. So when you look at Stand Together, that's the philanthropic arm of Charles Koch, of the Koch brothers. And then Chick-fil-A's WinShape, they have co-founded several catalytic nonprofits that regularly appear with Koch entities, right? So that's, I'm going to get back full circle. I'm just trying to give you a big overview right now. You've got the Servant Foundation, also known as Signatory, and they channel the Green family's profits. The Green family is the family behind Hobby Lobby. Y'all, let me give you an example. But in a 4-year window, Hobby Lobby helped send $66 million to ADF. ADF is the Alliance Defending Freedom. So between Alliance Defending Freedom, the Heritage Foundation, and the Family Research Council, I'm calling names, ADF, the Alliance Defending Freedom, the Heritage Foundation, and the Family Research Council, $66 million. Don't you know the Heritage Foundation name? The Heritage Foundation is, in essence, the author, if you will, the main out front group for Project 2025. So when you start so let me give you the big groups real quick, and let me kind of educate. I hope y'all are tracking with me. There is a group called the American Legislative Exchange Council, ALEC. It's called ALEC. And what they do is they pair legislators with corporate lobbyists. So the people in charge in the General Assembly, Republicans, are paired, and they have written model bills, those bills I told you about, right? And so the way they work is they draft ready-made legislation on tax cuts, school vouchers, stand your ground laws, voter ID suppression, environmental rollbacks, everything that we're seeing right now. And so we see hundreds of bills that pass every year from ALEC, American Legislative Exchange Council. Now, let me give you the next big group. The next big group is the Family Research Council, FRC. They are a Washington-based Christian lobbying and research ministry that's been around since 1983, okay? Then you've got the National Christian Foundation. Who's the National Christian Foundation? The National Christian Foundation, I need y'all to hear me, is the largest Christian donor advised fund in the United States. Manages $15 billion in assets. Now, this is the reason why this is important. The National Christian Foundation runs a 501c4. I'll do a show. I need to make notes on new shows I need to do. So you have 501c3 nonprofits, but you also have 501c4 nonprofits. Your 501c3 nonprofits really have to be strictly nonpartisan, but your C4s can be very partisan. They can be very conservative, very liberal, whatever the case is. Well, the National Christian Foundation, which is that largest Christian donor advised fund, has a C4 arm, right? It's called FRC Action. So they do direct electioneering. Now, this is what I need you to understand. Guess who some of the biggest givers are into that National Christian Foundation arm? You get it right. The Cathy family from Chick-fil-A, because they're able to give anonymously, right? So then money will flow to groups like the Alliance Defending Freedom, Heritage Foundation, all of those policy councils, whatever the case is, the Heritage Foundation. They're the flagship conservative think tank. They've been around since 1973, right? And so this Project 2025 is not anything new. I mean, this thing started back when Reagan was president, right? Reagan, they put out what was called the Mandate for Leadership. So it has developed into Project 2025. They publish research, they train political appointees, they run their own lobbying firm, they run Heritage Action, they create priorities, they do all of these things. Then you have the Alliance Defending Freedom. Remember I told you the last element is like, how do we litigate? How do we protect this? The Alliance Defending Freedom is the world's largest, hear me, Christian legal organization. And what they do is they litigate cases on religious liberty claims, abortion restrictions, LGBTQ rights, rollbacks. They write model statutes, etc. So what I want you to get out of this is that there are things that directly come out of this machinery. Large foundations that give into advised donor funds, that give into think tanks, that hire lobbyists, that partner with legislators, that give model bills, that create policy, that they then are litigating in court because they already knew what they were doing was illegal or unconstitutional. And so let me give you some examples of what has come out of this funding apparatus. Public school vouchers and charter expansion. One of their big things is parental choice. And I'll cover that in a later segment. But for those of you just tuning in, I'm James Gailliard. This is Until All Thrive and I'm trying to educate Until All Thrive podcast. I'm educating the people on Chick-fil-A's foundation and on Hobby Lobby's foundation and the damage it has done to poor communities and communities of color and rural communities. And while that local Chick-fil-A owner may be more than happy to give you 25 chicken sandwiches or give you a discount at your next community event, know that it is so small in comparison to the pillage that is going on to the populace. And so the first thing we can do is to go find another place to buy a chicken sandwich. Because you are funding, let me give you examples. Every time you go buy a sign at Hobby Lobby, every time you go buy a chicken sandwich and wait in the line at Chick-fil-A and brag about how good their customer service is, it's amazing. Let me give you great customer service, a chicken sandwich you like, and let me strip your child's education from them while I'm doing it. Let me give you every Christian sign, every way of saying, a Bible scripture you can think of, and then while you're doing it, let me fund civil rights rollbacks while you're checking out at the register at my Hobby Lobby store. And listen, I have a Chick-fil-A and a Hobby Lobby in my city, and I know the haters will be there, but I don't care because we are at a desperate hour where we need to speak truth to this stuff, and we have to educate our people. So let me give you some examples. I'll give you the list, and then I'll talk about a few. Public school vouchers and charter expansion, environmental deregulation, food insecurity, gun safety rollbacks, regressive tax cuts. And here are the vehicles for that. Let me just give you public school vouchers and charter expansion. The reason, what I tell folk is I'm really not fundamentally even against vouchers. I'm fundamentally against underfunding traditional public schools. So I have a hard time with you owing me money and giving it to someone else. Like, in what world does that even work in? Like, in what world does that work in any regard at all? You owe me money, and I'm going to give it to somebody else. Like, that fundamentally makes no sense at all. And so that's exactly what we're dealing with. There was a whole court case on us underfunding public education. And so, I'm not fundamentally even opposed to a parent. Excuse me, got a little hiccup there. I'm not fundamentally opposed to a parent having a choice. If there's a new private school in my community and it looks new and shiny and it feels safe and it's getting public dollars without any regulation, without any accountability, I want my child to have a shot. Over here is the traditional public school in the community that we have to go through because of our zip code or because of our address. And it's not been well funded. It's dirty. It's lacking teachers. It doesn't have support personnel. And these are the two options. Does the parent really even have a choice? A choice is, here is a great private option, and here is a great public option. That's a choice. A choice is not go to UNC Chapel Hill, go to Duke, go to Morehouse, go to A&T. Let me come back to North Carolina. Go to Shaw, go to Central, go to Elizabeth City State, go to Fayetteville State, right? Go to App State, or go to Mama and them's basement school of economics without any classrooms, any accreditation, nothing. Is that a choice? Go to an approved UNC institution, or go to some person that you never heard of without an accreditation in their school. That's not a choice. That's exactly what has happened in public education. And people claim it's parents' choice. The parents have no choice. They really don't. Or you really want something great for your child, and the tuition is $8,000. I'm just throwing that out. I have no idea what it is. Tuition is $8,000 a year, and you get an opportunity scholarship for $3,000. So that leaves you having to come up with $5,000, but you barely are making ends meet. Well, I don't have the $5,000, so guess what? I don't have a choice. I've got to send them to public schools. So, public school, so I shared the pipeline and some of the money that funnels through that pipeline, how it funnels. Environmental deregulation. Project 2025 chapters literally gut EPA climate rules. Food insecurity. Project 2025, we're seeing this, like a block grant is removing SNAP benefits, /benefits for 3 million households. A disproportionate number of those SNAP benefits are women and children of color. And so adopting stand your ground laws that radically increase the homicide jump, particularly amongst Black victims. Regressive tax cuts. So the vehicles go on and on and on and on. And when you begin looking at the data, you see someone like Dan Cathy via the National Christian Charitable Foundation as a top pass-through donor to the Defense Fund and to the Heritage Foundation. According to the National Christian Foundation I told you about, they name the owner of Chick-fil-A as one of their top donors. Bought with the courtesy of a chicken sandwich for the Black community. Good job, guys. And so when the Cathy family at Hobby Lobby formed the WinShape Foundation, they provided some of the initial grants to even stand up the Family Research Council. The Family Research Council, which is a major named contributor to Project 2025. And then if you recall, some of y'all probably don't recall, Chick-fil-A got like a lot of backlash. I forget how many years back about LGBTQ plus stuff. And they were like, listen, we going to be very careful about how we give our money, what we give our money to. And so there was a split out of, I want you to hear how this stuff works. There was a split out of the National Christian Foundation at that point, right? And after splitting from it, the money went to the Defense Fund. And so the money went to the Defense Fund, Family Research Council, and the Heritage Foundation. in the tune of millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars. And so, the bottom line is that when we trace money back from some of these organizations, we start to see that they fund things that are really damaging to our community. So that is why I made the statement a few weeks back that I do not spend money at Chick-fil-A nor Hobby Lobby. I would encourage my listeners to take into account what I have said. I would encourage my listeners to be thoughtful and prayerful about being curious about what does my dollar really fund? What does my chicken sandwich really fund? Does my sign and decoration purchase really fund? And for us to choose differently. And so I just wanted to leave that in the Real Talk segment. I'm about to be out of time. I hope today's show has been helpful for everyone. I'm really grateful that you guys are tuning in. I just have a few moments left because we and I'm not gonna cover every segment on every show, so just be mindful of that, okay? But I'm gonna go ahead and cover my implementation and my village and a final exhortation, and we're gonna be out of here. So we're gonna be done in 4 or 5 minutes. This is what I want you to do. I laid out a couple of bills for you today in the show. All you have to do is go to NC Bill Lookup. Okay, I'm gonna give you 3 things to work on, okay? The first is NC Bill Lookup. And even though we say it's a House bill and we say it's a Senate bill, we say it's an HB and an SB, when you go into NC Bill Lookup, and as I get better on the show, y'all, I'm going to show you actually how to do this. I'm just not good enough with the equipment and the technology yet to hit the button and walk you through it, but that's coming, okay? Just know that it's coming. We already made improvements from before, right? So it's coming. But just all you have to do is, once you know the bill number, just if it's a House bill, type H, not HB, just H, and the bill number, and then hit go. As long as you pick the session. Like if it's this session, it'll be labeled 25, 26. And you can see the bill digest. You can see the bill review, like a summary of the bill. You can see the route it has taken. And then you can click on the hyperlink where it shows the vote. And you click on it, it'll show you everyone and how they voted, who was a yay, who was a no, who had an excused absence. And, from the Democratic side and the Republican side. So I want to, if you have questions about bills, look it up for yourself. And you can also see how your state rep, how your legislator, how your congressman votes. I think that's specifically North Carolina, but so NC Bill Lookup. The second thing, I want you to make sure you are actually registered to vote. So NC Voter Lookup. Go to NC Voter Lookup, Google that, and you'll see a little form that pops up. Will ask for your first name, last name, date of birth, county, those kinds of things. You hit search, and your voter record is going to turn up. You can look that up for anybody. So if you're curious about people that you work with, if they're voting, people in your family, if they're voting, you can see right there whether or not their voter record is active or inactive. And so I want to encourage you to do that. I don't trust what is happening in North Carolina with our local election boards because the Republican Party has taken over because of, again, usurping power and taking some powers away. And so I'm not sure if there's going to be an effort to purge the voter rolls. I suspect there will be. And so I want to make sure you know for a fact that your voter record is active. It'll also give you other information that we just all need to know. Like, for example, what your precinct is. I would love to encourage you to get to know other people in your voting precinct. Have a cookout, have a party together, watch a football game, basketball game, a WNBA game together. Know those people because it's important that in whatever we do, we organize at a really low, at a very community level. And so it'll tell you your voter precinct. It'll tell you your congressional district. It'll tell you your state house district. It'll tell you your state senate district. Many years ago at Word Tabernacle, we did the VIP, the Voter Information Project, and where people, it was just a small little card, looked like a 3x5 card, and they wrote that information down so they would have it kind of right there in a card. And so I want to encourage you to do that. And I'll just mention this one before we wrap up. There's a website called GuideStar. You don't have to pay a subscription for it, but you do have to sign up. Guide, Guide star. And what is so cool about that is that it like if you have a nonprofit that's not a church, you're required to file Form 990. And in your requirement to file Form 990, you can get some good information, like how much assets this organization has, how much key people make in certain areas in the organization. But most importantly, if it's a foundation, because this is nonprofits or foundations, you can see what they give their money to. And I think I'm going to do several shows on the inequity of philanthropy. And we're still seeing in many of our communities evidence of that. So 3 really cool sites to just kind of check out. I know I made a lot of strong statements today. It's all public record, right? Even though I know some stuff people give anonymously, it's still all very much a matter of public record. And so in my village segment today, listen, I just want to shout out the people. I was thinking about this. I'm going to go across the country. I want to shout out Democrats in the state of Texas. That's who my shout out is in the village. Even though I know that's a big village on the other side of the state, country. But, the fact that they are trying to keep their state from being redistricted, redrawn. I mean, y'all, we're supposed to redistrict every 10 years at census time. Well, this is not that time. But because there's a likelihood that in the midterm elections, Republicans will lose the U.S. House, they are now trying to redraw the entire state, gerrymander the entire state of Texas. In order to do that, they need a quorum, and so all the Democrats have left the state, and they're in Chicago, they're in Illinois, they're in so many different places, New York, and they're not returning to session because you have to have a quorum in order to have a vote. I appreciate the effort. I even shouted out one of them and said, hey, you want to come to North Carolina, I'll have a property for you to stay in if you need to do that. And so, this democracy fight takes all of us. I'm going to be saying a lot over the weeks ahead about the importance of our vote. We could fix this with one election cycle. I just shared that with Union Hill Baptist Church on Saturday, shouting them out for their civic engagement ministry. And so here's my final exhortation to everyone today. We've come to the end of the broadcast, but we're not at the end of the conversation. And so I just want to encourage everyone, y'all, that the race is not given to the swift nor to the strong, but to those who endure for the end. And I just want to encourage you to hang on in there. I want to encourage you to get involved. I want to encourage you to get informed. I want to encourage us to be inspired. And I just want us to recognize that you have the ability in you to do great things. You have the ability in you to make a difference. You have the ability in you to bring down kingdoms and principalities. You have the ability in you to catalytically change a community. You have the ability in you to create something that has never been created. You have the ability in you for God to use you in ways that you never, ever thought was possible. And so I want to thank you for joining me on the first show. I'm James Gailliard. I'm going to be your host every Monday from 5 to about 6:15. Some days we may go even as long as 6:30, but right there at about 75, 80 minutes per show. And so look, I'm out of talk. I'm out of time, but I'm not out of talk. I'm going to get us on out of here. Have a great day. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining. And I'm going to go out on our theme song. I'll be checking out your social media posts. I'll be responding to all of it. Have an awesome day. Have a great night.
Can't legislate love, but we can name hate. Can't fix what you won't face at the gate. So we name it wars, tariffs, ice, wage gap, prison pipe, call each idol down and flip the light. This ain't about fame, it's about food. Not platforms, but power in the hands they exclude.
We won't stop till the whole county rise. We won't stop till the whole county rise. We won't stop till the whole